So today I'm going to talk to you guys about balance, right? And this idea just came out of my head yesterday when I was having a conversation with my friend Andrew. And we were talking about how we live in a world where we're constantly being pushed and pulled on what to do in our lives. And when you look at even most job structures, they have a very extreme outlook on your productivity, how you should conduct yourself, how you should be living life essentially, and how this whole like 80-20 balance that we've all been told, it's just basically one massive lie. Because when you look at what's happening right now in today's day and age, especially in the working economy, people go to 9 to 5 jobs, but it's more realistically like a 9 till 9, 9 till 10. I listen to my friends who work in the city. Some of them tell me that, yeah, okay, they clock out at 5, but then they're taking work home with them, or they're working over the weekends. And I just thought to myself, well, this whole concept of balance is actually a fallacy. It doesn't really actually exist. And seeing as we're going into the new year, we're trying to implement these new routines and these habits and just get ourselves in the best possible shape as we can, whether that's, physically, mentally, emotionally, financially. I see loads of creators and a lot of people online voicing their opinions on balance. So I just wanted to give my take on this. I think personally that the concept of balance needs to be removed from the average person's sort of thought process. And let me explain why. You see, this whole idea of balance where you work, say, Monday to Friday and then take the weekend off to rest is just a ploy, like a tactic to just keep you in the same cycle. Now, if it works for you and if you're genuinely happy about that, then okay, sure, go ahead and continue to do that and then just click off this video. But I guarantee that if you're watching this video, you want to do something more with your life. You want to take yourself to the next level. And in order to do that, you have to break free of the cycle that you're currently in right now. Take, for example, the individual who plays video games until 4 in the morning every single night, eating unhealthy foods, burgers, fries, you name it, right? Binge watching Netflix. Where in their routine do they have time to get up early, go to the gym, start reflecting on themselves mentally, doing a bit of a life audit? There's no time for that because whatever time they're not spending either gaming, watching, just being glued, just watching TV or watching Netflix, being glued to the screen, they're going to spend sleeping, probably until the late hours of the afternoon. That's something that I used to do years ago. And I'm telling you right now, mentally, I had no space. I had no mental capacity to even think about reflecting on myself or, building new, better habits. So in order to break free from that cycle, you have to tip the scale from one extreme to the other side. That's when I started to really dial in on self-improvement. I really started to focus in on my fitness. I hired a coach to help me build my body. I started to consume content that revolved around self-improvement. Started watching people like Hamza, for example, Iman Gaji, Austin Dunham. These people became like center points that were like my data hubs, right? Like nodes of information that I was consistently, hitting back and forth from in order to learn and digest new information to then separate from the former sense of self, right? And I still do that to this day. That's why I'm continuously learning and developing, and I'm able to sit here and share this information with you guys now. One of the pledges that I made to myself last year to rip myself out of, toxic habits and just solidify that I'm a healthier human being was doing 75 hard. I talk about that so much on this channel, I've just realized. Honestly, and the reason why I say that is because it's a testament to changing my life, changing my mindset, changing my habits, and ultimately changing my identity and how I perceive not just myself, but the world around me, right? I used to be the type of person who would just get buried in binge watching shows, playing games, just eating low quality food, and just doing whatever job I was doing at the time and then just sleeping. And I thought eventually this whole system, this life is going to come to an end, and what have I got to show for it? What have I accomplished? I needed to rip myself out of that. And so there was no room for balance. And yes, it's such an extreme way to look at things, but I truly do believe like this is the way that you're ultimately going to change. When I joined the army in 2012, from basic training, even when I went full time as a regular in 2016, it was a period where there was no room for complacency, for mediocrity. Because I believe when you're in a position where you're seeking balance, you're looking to like hit the brakes or rather, you're looking to put your foot down on the gas just enough so that, you reach a point where you get a bit uncomfortable. And then once you're uncomfortable, you pump the brakes and you ease back into that little middle zone. And that's how you stay in that rut. That's my personal belief system. That's how you stay in the rut, the situation that you continuously find yourself in, the 9 to 5 that you absolutely hate, working for the boss that doesn't give a shit about you, or simply doing like a good habit for 2 weeks and then relapsing, right? For a lot of the guys, I know a lot of my viewers here are men who are also trying to better themselves. You guys know this all too well, right? You'll start NoFap, for example. You'll abstain for like the best part of a month, and then you'll get like a little urge or an inkling or something will trigger you, and boom, that's it, you're fapping again. You're on Orange YouTube looking for that video to get you off. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? The way to go about just eliminating that from your system, I do believe, honestly, you need to go into a space of just going to one side of the extreme. And that might sound a little, contradictory to what I said in the previous video about implementing and doing things in a certain way to build yourself habits for success. But I think when it comes to making improvements or holistic improvements like this, then yes, you need to tip the scale completely to the extreme and really challenge yourself, right? But again, you can also break things down and do it bit by bit so long as you can maintain control. But I know for the majority of people, I know for myself especially, I can't do that. I can't just feed myself, little bits of cheap dopamine when I'm trying to separate from the source, right? So maybe I should retract that statement, but those are two ways to kind of weave and sew in better habits into your psyche, if you really struggle. But for the most part, I think that, yeah, you have to go full send. With the military, for example, we didn't have the option to just regress into laziness, into complacency, because there was always a task to do. We were up at 5 a.m. regardless of what time we went to bed, right? I remember most days we were up at like 5 in the morning, and we'd only go to sleep at 11:30, sometimes midnight, because we had to iron our kit, prepare our lockers for inspection for the next morning. And, yes, it was tough. Yes, it was very uncomfortable. A lot of the times, I remember during lectures, I'd literally be forcing myself to stay awake, right? I even got busted a few times for it. I had to do push-ups, or I had to stand at the back of the room because I was fucking falling asleep, man. But in that period of intensity, I learned so much about myself. I learned also that I'm capable of achieving more. I'm capable of performing to a high standard. You see where I'm going with this? So my concept of balance, I believe in the initial period, in the self-discovery period, especially when you're moving into new habits, I believe there's no room for that, right? And that's why people like Hamza, Iman, there are other various YouTubers who would back this claim. There are other people who you might listen to who would also back this claim. I'm sharing my thoughts based off my perspective, based off my lived experience. And I truly believe that, at least in the initial period, you cannot have any room for balance, right? Just like last year, when I decided I was going to start posting more and more content, because I always wanted to do this thing, but I lacked the knowledge, one, but then I also lacked the core skill set, which was being able to stick to a program, right? It's like when you go to the gym and you say, okay, I'm going to do this program which is going to build me muscle. Again, I was having this conversation with my friend and coach, Kyle, and he said there are a million different programs you can do. All of them will be effective. The, the main factor that just basically decides whether you make the progress or not is you. And it's your ability to adhere to the program. And in order to do that, you have to separate the identity from your former self. You have to separate from the fat degenerate gamer, or the person who makes excuses for everything all the time. The amount of times that guys spoke to me and reached out to me over last year saying, hey man, I really love your content. I really want to get into it myself, or I love the way that you've been transforming. I really want to, start going to the gym. When I speak to some of my clients who, before they became my clients, they said to me, I want to onboard with you. I want to, I want to train like you. I want to change my body, but I just don't have time. Or, oh, I've got kids. Or it's like, oh, my job takes up so much time. I'm like, dude, I was literally doing my program while I was looking after my mum who had cancer. Like, what the fuck kind of excuse do you have? I'm sorry, but that's just not acceptable. The truth of the matter is, and the reason why I say that is not because it's just because of, it's not to showboat or to compare, but it's about making a declaration to yourself and saying, you know what, now is the time. I've had enough. And it's just about giving yourself that extra kick to get out there and be fearless. Or even if you have the fear, go ahead and do it. Like when I was doing the abseiling course during basic training, I was shit scared of heights. I had to fast rope down like a 60-foot wall. Yes, I had a harness and everything, but it's still terrifying when you look down and you can just see this massive like chasm beneath you. But then you just go ahead and do it. You've got to be fearless. I really do believe you have to develop that skill, which you will develop if you just push yourself to do so. And yeah, like there's no room for balance there. You have to continuously just keep plugging away at it until you reach a point where you land and create this new base of like foundation within yourself. Then once you're in it and it becomes a part of your routine, that's when I believe, you can implement little things like blockers and stoppers, because the truth of the matter is, you can't just grind and grind and grind endlessly, right? And it may sound like I've been talking about going about it in this fashion. No, I'm not promoting this whole hustle grind culture that we see plaguing the internet. I'm talking about just pushing yourself to the point where you break free of the own cage that you have allowed yourself to be put in, and you create this new like system that you fit into so seamlessly, or it fits and integrates with you so seamlessly in your life. And once you do that, then you can then start to implement things like, having like little rest periods, or allowing yourself to indulge a little bit in like the nicer, finer, maybe slightly like hedonistic things in life. Because let's face it, we're all human beings at the end of the day. Most people like to have a drink. I don't personally. I don't really like alcohol, but it's like, another thing is like, I remember Hamza saying he absolutely abhors people who play video games. And I can see why. Because when you are not aware, when you are not self-aware, you cannot honestly sit there, even as you listen to this now, you cannot honestly sit there and tell me that, oh yes, I put a timer on like for an hour or for even 2 hours and I just play until that minute is up, until the hour is up, and then I switch off my console, or I log off the game or switch it off, or get back into something productive on that time. No, absolutely not. I refuse to believe that, because I used to tell myself that same bullshit lie, and I'm telling you, I used to say, yep, just an hour, just 2 hours, and then look at the time and 4 or 5 hours have gone, right? What I'm saying here is, if you enjoy that, if that's something that you'd like to do, make sure that you clear all your critical tasks out of the way first. Make sure you look after your health. Make sure you exercise. Make sure you get sunlight. Make sure you eat correctly. Make sure that you do whatever work you need to do. Work on your side hustle, your passion project. You'll find that by the day is up, you won't have that many hours left in the day until you need to get to bed and sleep for a good amount of time. But if you have that time, say for example, your schedule cleared that evening to go out with the friends, then okay, whatever. Go and throw 3 hours away playing video games. And I don't mean that in a negative context. I mean literally just go and indulge. And the same thing goes for like after you've been eating clean for like 4, 5, 6 weeks, so long as you're meeting the requirements for your goal, whether it's to get shredded, whether it's to gain muscle, whatever it is, yeah, okay, allow yourself to have, a night of having pizzas, fries, whatever it is. Just don't go overboard. Which reminds me, Dan Coe actually made a reel which I reformatted and I made into one of my own personal motivation reels on the Instagram page. I'll link it down below for you guys to look at. That actually was one of my highest performing reels now I think about it, where he says, in essence, enjoy life, but don't overdo it. And that rings so true with me. And again, it just drives back my whole point to this video, which is in the initial stages, you cannot have balance in order to separate yourself to elevate to the next stage of, self-enlightenment, being self-aware, just being a better human being altogether. That's the reason why resolutions fail so much. That's the reason why so many people will trick themselves and lie and put themselves into a false sense of hope because, one, they're relying on external validation, or it's because they want to have the best of both worlds and they believe in this concept of, balance, balance, balance. I'll work out 3 days a week, but then for the next 4 days, I'll just do nothing, get zero movement, drink alcohol, eat shitty food, right? And still imbibe in the habits that got me into the situation where I thought, okay, I need to get into the gym. It's like the hedonistic treadmill, so to speak, or the hamster wheel, right? You cannot have balance in the initial period, but when you've headed through that little obstacle, you've made it over that hurdle, and you've established a new baseline where you've started to, reframe your self-identity, then I believe you can have little periods of downtime where you can take your foot off the gas a little bit because you don't want to overdo it. You don't ever want to overtrain, right? Too much of anything is a bad thing. That's my core philosophy. If you do too much of something, eventually you'll reach a point where you get bored of it, you burn out, you get sick, you get injured, you get the gist, right? So long as you are doing everything up until that point with absolute maximum intensity and integrity, I think that you can then honestly, sit back and think, okay, you know what? I can afford to give myself a day off. I can afford to have a couple hours where, all right, I'll watch my favorite shows, or I'll play this video game, or I'll go out and drink with the guys, or whatever it is. Because as human beings, we do need to be social as well, right? That's hard-coded within our programming as humans, right? It's funny, programming, talk about the Matrix. I mean, life is literally just that, isn't it? And in this whole system of binary where we're zeros and ones, I think the universe doesn't understand, maybes or balance. It only understands action or inaction. And in my personal opinion, if you want to take yourself from point A to point B, or if you want to go from, whatever you're making now to 5, 10K a month, whatever it is, then you're not going to get there by putting out the intention so that the universe hears you, then making a little bit of movement, and then just boom, putting a block on it, and then just regressing with the behaviors that got you to the point where you thought, shit, I need to make a change. I need to make a shift in my life. Go all in. Go full send. Screw balance. Forget what your parents tell you. Forget what your friends tell you, okay? There's no room to hit the brakes when you're trying to break out of the cage that you're currently in. And if you're somebody who's already been doing this for a while, and if you're thinking, okay, should I give myself some time to relax? I would say read the room. Read your own integral room. Read your own internal room. Do you feel like you can do it? Do you feel like you should? Do you think that you deserve it? Like, those are, honest questions to ask yourself. As I started to do more and more of this work, I realized I want to do more and more of it. So I hope that you guys found value in this video. Please leave your comments, leave your honest thoughts. Do you agree with me? Do you think I'm talking complete crap? Please, I'd like to hear what you guys have to say. And yeah, I think I'm going to continue doing more of these unedited videos, but I'm also scripting some stuff that is in the pipeline too, so I look forward to sharing that with you guys. So yeah, that's it for now. Until next time.